Dearly beloved, I always love these conversations we get to have on the Making Majik podcast. And today I am stoked to welcome back Ross O'Loughlin, who is a proud Irishman turned Montreal resident and marketing expert known as the conversion engineer. So, Ross was on the podcast about a year ago, and we were talking about open every day. Ross has a book. If you haven't read it, read the book, get on his email list because he's going to give you a ton of really amazing, valuable content multiple times a week that are going to support you on your journey of making amazing. And I'm sorry, I used the word content. You just had an email today about
That's funny.
I write words, I speak words, I write down my thoughts, I create videos. It's not content. Content is an unappreciated way of expressing ourselves on the internet. And so what what I wanted to say is that you're going to receive amazing wisdom and strategies that will support you to build your business and get to that $35,000 a month mark. Today, we're talking about creative motherfuckery. I should have had the rated R on the podcast before we started. So if you're offended by that word, either just earmuffs yourself every time you know what's coming, or maybe skip to another podcast. But today, that's what we're talking about because that seems to be the theme in your life these days, Ross, is around creative motherfuckery. So, to just get us started and begin the adventure, I've been seeing in your emails, I'm on your email list in the last little while. That is a topic that you're really talking about passionately these days. So, what does it mean? What is creative motherfuckery to you?
Yeah, so we'll define the word that you just put the label on, right? Motherfucker and motherfuckery. Like it's funny. I wrote an email the other day and I had a guy write back to me like, "Ross, I know you're not from America because you're Ireland, but where I'm from, that word is highly offensive and would start fights if I called it someone on the street." And I was like, well, I'm aware of that context of the word, that definition, but that's not necessarily what I'm using it for. Like in my world and people I talk around, like, motherfucker is a compliment that's used when someone's like formidable. You know what I mean? Like, he's a bad motherfucker, man. You see this guy, like, man, you do not want to mess with that dude. He is a motherfucker on the mats, right? In the world of jujitsu. Because the person is impressive and remarkable and formidable. And so we use it in the sense of being a creative motherfucker, where like that stuff that you create stands out. And what creative motherfuckery is I believe it is the path forward for most folks, I would say, in the expert coaching online education space,
Yeah.
because it's all about like how you get paid handsomely to create stuff that you love to make, that other people love to buy, because it is different, it is unique, it is your own, and they can't see it. They can't get what you have to offer elsewhere, right? Because you have channeled some of your own, I would say, artistic expression and spirit into your work, which is very different to how a lot of people in the online space operate, right? Like we want to get this online business up and running, and then we're like, well, how do I sell online? And then it's all just like taking of other people's strategies and just imitating what other people are doing because it works for them. And like, I'm not saying that that's not a phase in the journey. Like there's a time and a place, I think, to model. But if you really want to be successful, I believe that people need to embrace their creative motherfuckery, where they are merging, I would say, the two worlds of art and business, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about commercial production and producing stuff to make money. It is about how you also weave in your artistic expression. And I'm not when I talk about art, I'm not talking about like pretty graphics and making things beautiful. I'm talking about the more substantive part of art, right? We're like real, what I would define as real artists are folks who are like channeling something and have something real and true to say from their own perspective about how they observe and see the world, and they're letting that shine through their work. I think art, like the definition of art, if it's like it's pretty pictures, I think is pretty shallow. I
Yeah.
think most of the art that has endured and are masterpieces speak to something far deeper than that. And it's usually because that person who created that thing has something that they are trying to express about the world. And that world can be your own personal world. It can be your professional domain, right? But that's really what I would say Creative Motherfucker is about.
I love it. Yeah, I had a big experience about 8 years ago where it felt like for the first time ever, my inner artist and my inner entrepreneur got married and they were able to
Mm,
collaborate on everything moving forward. And that was the turning point in my career was when I was able to be like, "Oh, I can be highly creative and professional and I can make money with these pieces that I've been cultivating." Because before it was like, I'm an artist when I'm not working,
yeah.
and I'm an entrepreneur when I am, and my entrepreneur stuff has to be buttoned up. It needs to be just like super lame.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, I mean that's one of the big pieces that I encourage people in the Magic Mind is like find your uniqueness and express the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just gonna blend in and be like everybody else on the internet. And so with this topic for you, we right before I press record, we were talking about AI. And
Yeah.
there's this unbelievable new tool that we all have access to right now, and everybody's
Yeah.
using different ways for different purposes. And it could be easy for people to just get AI to express their opinions for them and to write
Yeah.
all their shit. But I know that's not the purpose and probably not the advice you're going to be giving. So, what are your thoughts around using AI for being creative?
Yeah, it was actually the arrival of AI that kind of sent me down this journey. And I would say like this is kind of the newest expression of my philosophy where I've just gone a level deeper, right? To really narrow in on things like open every day, what we spoke about before was like, how do you get people to join all year round without the launch model? And the reason I hated the launch model was because it is all commercial production, right? Like it's just deadline, 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 and just like promoting everyone else's work so you keep your partners happy. And you may not really believe, like, there's a lot of people out there promoting partners that don't really believe in the stuff, but they kind of know that they have folks on their list, so they're promoting it so they can get a back promotion. I always felt that was kind of slimy. And so the when the AI arrived, I noticed how people were using it, and they're just using like people were almost bragging in a certain way of like, "Hey, AI wrote this for me. Like I didn't write this at all." And I was like, "Okay, I'm a technology enthusiast. I appreciate the absolute phenomenon that it is and how cool it is that what it can do. But at the same time, I found myself like when I realized I had read something and I was like questioning, is this actually AI? Particularly with videos, I was seeing people like creating videos of themselves where it wasn't them saying the words in the video. And then when it was revealed to me that that was a bot,
Yeah.
that was like, it was a machine learning, whatever, that it was like a sock puppet Bradley that I'm not sure if the script was generated by AI, but you didn't record that video. I was like, I feel duped by this. Like I was like, oh, my trust has been broken. Now I don't know if it's you or a robot. Now, these words coming out of your mouth, are these actually what you think and feel and believe? Is what I realized I was catching myself saying. And I use AI daily, but I don't use it to like say things for me. And when I saw that my clients were, some of them were trying to like use AI as a means to relieve the pain and suffering they experienced when they were like writing content or like having to churn out stuff. I'm like AI may relieve that symptom of pain that you're feeling around, I don't want to sit down and write the keyboard, but it's not going to solve the larger level problem, which is why are you writing this stuff in the first place? It's like that message you just mentioned around like my problem with the word content. Like being in business is not about producing content. Content is like just a term that's used, but when you examine it, it's like a thing within a container. And it's like oftentimes people are just like churning out stuff, thinking that if there's just stuff on their feed or on their website or on their YouTube channel, that somehow that's going to convert people. And that's not actually the case. What's converting people is that within the video or the email or the post, that there's a perspective and a point of view that that person has that you resonate with and that you align with. and that the person reading it goes, I like the way Bradley thinks.
Hmm.
He's got something for me. He sees the world in a way that I would find useful. He's got wisdom, he's got expertise. He clearly knows about the space that I am trying to learn about or do things in. And I align with how he sees the world and his beliefs and his philosophy. And I think I want him as a teacher or instructor to get instructions and guidance from. Like, that's actually what gets someone to convert. And
Yeah.
if you're just churning out content, and if you're getting AI to like write stuff for you, but you're letting go of the control of what elements of your perspective are working their way into that, like, it's just going to do massive damage, right? Like, you
Yeah.
might have lots of more articles, but are those articles really meaningfully going to move people towards you? Like,
Yeah.
I looking at the stuff that people produce with AI, I would say no, right?
You get,
For the most part.
yeah, it's interesting. You can feel a lot of the time when it is written by a robot and not
Yeah.
by a human with their human experience. At least at this stage of
Yes.
the game, I mean, I imagine it will get better as time goes on, but
Yeah.
there's something that is cathartic, powerful, satisfying. Uh,
Yeah.
relieves us when we do the writing and the self-expression and don't
Yeah.
outsource that. It's like we can't
Totally.
outsource our life experience, our wisdom, our fuck ups, the things that we've learned along the way. Like that is not outsourceable. And we have to
Yeah.
write that. We have to like put that shit down because I feel like there's when we're expressing ourselves in that way, there's some form of healing or right alignment that takes place. And if we just tell AI like write a story about a time that I failed and here was like a small piece of the details and AI does and it's like yeah that's good enough that gets the gist of the story. The gist isn't what we're going for. What we want to be offering our people is the gold.
Totally.
And I just love, I want to bring attention to this on the bottom of your email, all your emails. I thought this was super cool. You've got a fingerprint and it says 100% human guarantee. This email was lovingly crafted by a human for a human. While I may use AI during my creative process, brainstorming images, etc., I will never use AI or robot to represent me. It will always be me, you see and read, which is
Yeah.
it's a good guarantee.
I think that's a great like transition to like I'm not against AI. I use AI on the daily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Images. I'm using ChatGPT. I got my wife using ChatGPT. She loves it for research, and it is amazing. And it's an incredible brainstorming partner.
Hmm.
Like, I just recently was working on the model for Creative Motherfucker, like a diagram, like a Venn diagram, and then I was like crafting out the principles, which I now call the Tao of Creative Motherfuckery, which are the three sets of principles that allow someone to be highly and handsomely paid for creating for just an hour a day, right? And when I was doing those, I was working on it, but I'm also aware that like I don't have a full set of fleshed out ideas. Like, as soon as I start writing about stuff, I'm always getting fresh insights. I'm always getting new information and something else sparks. So
Yeah.
when I'm creating something for the first time, I'm clearly not working with all the ideas I need to work with. And so by you interacting with AI and discussing, like, here are my principles. Do you see patterns here? Is there something missing? How would you say this and whatnot? It feeds back to me a whole bunch of stuff. And a lot of it is wrong. And I'm like, that's not useful. But some of it, I'm like, oh shit, that's totally right. Like,
Yeah.
in the world of art and business, as an example, in the world of art and business, I see these as two worlds, and we want to exist in the overlap, right? The classic Venn diagram. And I always notice that there is a tension between the two worlds. Like, if you look at people who are suboptimally operating,
Yeah.
it's because they've kind of been pulled in too far in one direction, right? And so, as you might have expressed before, when you were in your business, you were like, true commercial production. This needs to be purely business, and
Yeah.
the art wasn't there. And then your stuff, you felt constrained, and the stuff you were making was kind of stale, right?
Super stale.
Whereas
Not having fun.
and you were not having fun, right?
Yeah.
Whereas other people, they get pulled into the too much in the artist direction, maybe because they've got hang-ups or fears about business and sales and money, but like too much on the art, and then your stuff isn't practical and useful to other people, and it's not profitable. You can spend all day creating unique stuff that feels awesome and is remarkable to observe for people that appreciate it, but it's just not profitable, right? And like people get pulled in these two directions, and I was aware of that, but as I was interacting with the robot, it's like, yeah, but there is also a state of harmony when you operate in, and I was like, that is so true. Like the robot gave me the idea of this harmony in the middle, that if you do follow some principles, like the stuff that you make when it is artistically your expression, but you're also producing stuff that people love and is useful and works for them, like it's more than the sum of its parts, and it's just so energizing for me and for others that you can continue to do it. And I did not think of that myself, but the AI produced this, and now I can write about it. So I think that's really the thing that AI is incredible as, is it can be such an awesome thinking partner, but you can't just take its ideas. The ideas have to resonate with you, right? Like your judgment and your taste. Like it
Yeah.
gave me many ideas in that brainstorming session, but that was one that I was like, yes, let
Yeah.
me take that and integrate it into my expression,
It
right?
can help instantly spark new thoughts, like a sparring
Totally.
partner. It's like it can be a great sparring partner to like bounce things around with. Um, I don't use it for brainstorming as much. I'm starting to,
Yeah.
because I've just yeah, it's such a fascinating thing. I mean, there's so many different directions. My buddy uses it for interpreting his dreams every day. He like it's
Crazy. Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
crazy. Yeah, he's really into dream work, and so he'll wake up in the mornings and he'll go run his dreams through ChatGPT, and he says it's mind blowing some of these interpretations that he gets. Uh,
Totally. But I would just add to that is that, like with anything, interpretation and like the world of the ethereal, right? Like you like tarot cards. I don't really believe that like tarot cards are a predictable element. Like I find it a bit too woo and whatever, like just not useful until someone gave me an expression where it's not about what the thing actually says,
yeah,
right? It's about these things are written in such a way where you can interpret them how you choose to interpret them, and some of those interpretations help you make sense of what's actually happening. And I was like, oh, that is actually right. Like, because sometimes you know what you need to be doing,
yeah,
and it's not until you get prompted that this external stimulus gives you a connection to be able to interpret things differently, and then that sparks you. And I think AI is like for interpreting dreams like that is amazing, right? Like that's a really novel use that I hadn't thought of.
yeah. Well, I'm curious about your creative process and
Yeah.
what that looks like for you when you're sitting down to write. Does it start in a notebook? Does it start on your computer? Um, does it start in coaching sessions? What's that creative process like for you from the start of something to the end point?
Yeah, I think it will depend on what I am creating, but there's usually a typical pattern. I like to break the creative process down into like four stages. Now I got these four stages from my music production coach, Mike Monday, who's a creative genius. I learned so much about music production and creativity from Mike. Um, and he has a four-stage process that he kind of refined when we did work together, and I can't beat it, so I just swipe it. And so his four-stage process is you can divide the overall process into two halves, which is the uh, divergent part where it's all about expansion and ideas and possibilities. And then the convergent part where at the halfway point, after you get a bunch of ideas, you realize, oh, this is what this thing is,
Yeah,
right? Like I know what it is now. Like I'm creating this thing, and I've gotten enough of an idea, and I've gotten enough stuff to realize this is what this is supposed to be.
yeah,
And then at that point, it's all about adding or removing or changing what was in the divergent part to bring it in and make it the best version of what it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, the overall process that a lot of us use. But he then breaks those two halves into two pieces. And in the divergent part, where there's lots of possibilities, there's the splurge, right? Which is just a technique he uses in music production where you just sit down and you have just like no breaks. You sit down and you just like, and there's no editing allowed. It's
Yeah.
just getting ideas out. And within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you have to get like an idea out. And there's no like checking what's the perfect drum beat and scrolling through your drum kits for like 45 minutes looking for the perfect bass. It's scroll randomly, pick a drum kit at random, and then make it work. This is the
Wow.
drum kit you're going to use. You got to lay something down.
Yeah.
And now that that's there, then you got to scroll and find a bass sound and you got to add in the bass. And by including just the no breaks, whatever randomness is there, and getting something out, then you're not allowed to listen to that piece of music for like 3 days
Yeah.
because your experience while you're creating it and your assessment of how good it is while you're creating it is just completely irrelevant. And
Yeah.
oftentimes you bounce a piece of music out and you come back to it and you thought it was great and then you listen to it and I was like, was I on drugs? This is horrible. Or vice versa. You're like, that was the worst thing ever. I am so shit. Why would I ever even call myself a music producer? And then you go back and then you're like, you don't even remember creating that track. And you're like, this is incredible. Like, and again, not that the whole piece of music is finished, but the ideas contained within that. There's like a way that the drum interacts with the bass in a breakdown. And you're like, oh, I could make a track around that. Right. And so splurging is just zero focus on quality,
Yeah.
100% focus on speed, and just like bleh, get it all out. And so if I'm writing an email campaign, if I'm doing a new training for someone, if I'm doing anything, I start with like at a minimum a 10-minute splurge where I just no breaks, start typing out. All right, I have got to just start writing about the topic of talking with Bradley, and I have no expectation of anything good coming out, and I'm just going to see what comes up, and then whatever pops into my head as the next thought, I have to document with zero judgment.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like brainstorming so much as like one idea and then another idea. It is just literally documenting the stream of consciousness with high intensity and speed, trying to keep up with your thoughts and just letting it rip.
Yeah.
And then you were doing that not to create something good, but just to get a whole bunch of stuff on the topic of what I'm going to talk with Bradley about. And then afterwards, I'll just let that sit. And I might come back to it the next day. And I'm like, okay, let me idea mine this. What is in here? A bunch of this is garbage, but like, what are the ideas that emerged or the themes that emerged that are actually like useful? And then I can use my judgment, just as if AI had produced it, and be like, oh, and that are really energizing to me, right? I'm looking for the ideas that are going to energize me when I do it. What are the things that I'm like, oh, there's something there, right? And whether it's an email subject line or one of the key principles for a new training I'm doing, I'll idea mine it out and then I'll organize it. And then the next stage is discovery, right? So the splurge is just letting it all out. And then discovery is where you take one idea that emerged and now you just double click in and you splurge on that again to go, oh, that thing about creative motherfuckery that kind of was a maybe that term just popped out in a splurge. And I'm like, oh, what's creative motherfucker? That energizes me. And
Yeah.
then I splurge on that. I'm discovering that single idea and exploring it further until I know what it's about.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm like, oh, this is about this new form of creativity, emerging art and business. Now I know what I need to do with it. And then I'm asking, okay, is this an email? Is this a training? And then once I know what I'm trying to create, then the rest is easy, right? Like the second half where it's drafting and then done, which is like polishing and formatting. Like we're all kind of used to that part because we know once the things are there how to turn it into like a blog post or whatever it is. But the discovery part I find is where a lot of people get log jammed, and it's mainly because they're writing with the editor present,
Yes.
right? Like they're writing and then they're like, oh, that's not the right way to say this. Oh, no, that's not good, right? Like rather than going no breaks, and I really mean no breaks. I could show you some of my splurges and how ridiculous they look because I don't care about spelling, I don't care about formatting, I don't even care if the things like just a dog's dinner that makes no sense to anyone or even to myself. It's
Get it
pure
out.
stream of get
Yeah.
it out, right?
Stream of consciousness
Um,
stuff. Yeah, that's why there's
yeah,
the writer's room and then the editors. And the editors are in a different room. Keep them away from the writer's room.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. And I find like I talk about like how to write like a motherfucker, and I use the concept of the frequency and the frequency, like yeah, if you ever made music or anything like that, or you've listened to like pros, like they'll say, yeah, I didn't really write that. The music kind of flowed through me, right? Or the words kind of passed through me. I was just merely this conduit, and like
Yeah.
a conduit to where? Like, is it the universe? Is it God, the muse? Like, there's clearly ideas that are not yours that
Floating
just
around.
pop out of nowhere. And I just for simplicity's sake, when I'm talking to people, I just call that the frequency, right? The frequency's out there, it's sending stuff to everybody, and you either open yourself and you allow the downloads to happen or you don't. But the downloads will not happen unless you open the gates. If your editor is in place, it puts the brakes on anything flowing through.
Yeah.
And I think the more you tap into that source, the higher the energy of the ideas that you will receive. And if you do it enough, the ideas that energize you, that resonate with you, become, as you were talking about it, your uniqueness,
Yeah.
right? Because ideas are energy, and if you're not listening and tapping into the ideas that resonate with you, like your positioning cannot emerge, right?
Yeah. This is great. I just a few pieces to add to what you shared is um my son and I, he's 8, we just finished writing our 20th kids stories with our Magic Kids company. In the last 4 years, we've done 20 stories, and some of these stories are 90-minute, full on like audio movies basically. And
That's prolific.
art, it's amazing. It's amazing. For people who've never written a freaking story, it's epic. And him and I have developed this process where we'll go for these walks or we'll go to a coffee shop and we just figure out like we might have some ideas based on things we were joking around about or questions we were asking, but we'll go and we'll just dump down. And like the other week we went to the coffee shop like, okay, let's come up with a story idea. So we started throwing all these ideas down, and then we have one story called the messiest day of my entire life, where it's just like one thing goes wrong, and then for the whole story everything just keeps going more and more and more wrong, and it's really silly. And we wanted to write a story like that, so we're like, let's write another story where everything just goes wrong. And so like what could be what could the story be about? And so we're like, wow, we threw out all these different ideas, and we're like, what about a grandpa and a grandson? They go fishing, and the day just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And so we did that, and then we mapped out all the different things that could happen. And then by the end of it, we're like, oh, there's a lot of cool pieces in here. And so we started to number like what would the order of events be? And so we gave each
Yeah,
numbers and a mind map. And then I was like, I got the information I need. And I went away and wrote the shitty first draft. And this is what I've got a writer's room now for Magic Kids where we get together on Tuesdays and we all just story write so we can be pumping out way more in-house stories for Magic Kids. And my advice for my team is always like, write a really shitty first draft. The first draft's
yeah,
the hardest because then you can steamroll the second draft. You can go
yeah,
back through and be like, where do I need more humor? Is it
yeah,
inspiring enough? Is the message
yeah,
like all that stuff happens in the second and third and fourth drafts, but the
yeah,
first draft is the most painful. Sometimes it just falls out. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that was so easy. And other
yeah,
times it's like banging your head against the wall and it's painful and it hurts. And it's like when you get through, it's like, oh God, I don't ever want to see this again. And then you just gotta leave it for a few days and then come back to it. But yeah,
yeah,
the shitty first draft is such an important part of whatever thing you're doing. And I like to do my brainstorming if I'm coming up with ideas on paper. I just
yeah,
find it I can't write as fast as I can type, but I find different ways of seeing things if I can draw out diagrams and I can just see things differently on paper than on
yeah.
my computer. So I just wanted to add that to your creative process as well. And then
Totally.
then there's the refinement and the polish,
Yeah.
and that's where, having an extra set of eyes, or where I might use ChatGPT to go through and help me with my spelling
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the way I would say it, the four stages, just to recap them, is
Yeah.
splurge, discover, then draft, and then done. And so Mike uses those words very intentionally. Like the shitty first draft, like he doesn't even, that's what he doesn't call it. He calls it discover, right?
Yeah.
Because I think trying to create a draft, like a draft is something that you would want someone else to review. And then there's immediately an expectation of quality associated to it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just saying, hey, I'm just documenting my thoughts on this particular idea
Yeah.
as they just flow to me naturally, like you can't not do that. But by that, I mean, like our stream of consciousness does not stop. Like you
Yeah.
cannot turn it off. It just goes. And if you are just saying, I'm going to document whatever words are coming into my head with zero expectation of any quality, you're not really creating a draft.
Yeah.
Like it's the same effect as the shitty first draft. And the shitty first draft is trying to appeal to it, but you don't even know what this thing is yet. So how could you do a draft of it? The draft is once you know what it is, it's like, great, so we have that. Can you please draft it up? And I think if you think of it more as discovery writing, where it's
Yeah.
like, I have some ideas that I just want to explore with no expectation that any of them are going to be any good. Like it does allow a lot of this stuff to come out. And then as you said, you're like, oh, these are fun. Like there was probably a bunch of ideas on the how the day got worse
Oh
that
yeah.
were like after you got them out, you're like, that one's not really that funny, but this one with the grandpa's hilarious, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the second part that I think a lot of people miss when they're writing and they're quote unquote creating content is often they're like thinking, what's a good piece of content for my audience,
Yeah.
right? And then it's all about, well, how can I write something that they're going to like, or that they will search on Google, or that is going to get them to buy? And then now you're immediately into a people pleasing, manipulative frame of how I do something that will get someone else to do a thing. And then all of a sudden, like what you find interesting and funny and energizing and what's going to fuel your creativity goes out the window, right? And so I think it's far better to like go for volume, but then when you're picking what you create, you're paying attention to what you find entertaining, what you have to say, what fires up your energy. Because if you're not tapping into that, it just falls flat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then people start to feel like when people talk about slimy marketing, it's because someone knows all these manipulative psychological tricks and then they're going full force deploying them with the intention of trying to get that person to buy
Yeah.
with no intention of sharing anything genuine from themselves. And then that just feels horrible. And people don't want to interact with that, right? And
You won't get
so,
people on your email list for very long if that's the way
no,
you go about it.
right? And so that's the part that I would just highlight from what you shared back
Yeah.
is yes, it's get the stuff out, but then it's about what are you entertained by?
Yeah.
And entertained doesn't just mean like haha funny, but like when I get on a rant, I'm entertaining myself because I've got something to say. So
Yeah.
it can be frustration, it can be whatever. It just has to be real, authentic, emotional experience that you're sharing because
Yeah.
that's the art part, right? If you're
That's
not
right.
sharing from a place of what you've genuinely felt or are feeling, it's just not art.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the piece, is like the message with the feeling, and if you can bring those together and let those flow, it's a beautiful thing that you're going to be offering the people that are on the receiving end of that.
Yeah,
So
for
much
sure.
is dry. So much is dry in the world right now, and it's like that the emotion with your own unique life experience and messages is that's the art. That's the thing that
A
people are
hundred percent.
that's what people
A
are
hundred
coming to
percent.
you for. Is they want you. They're the real you. And it takes some
Yeah.
digging. And that stream of consciousness that we can access, it's like anything. You just put in the reps. The more you do it, the easier it flows, the more accessible it can be on tap. That it's just like, okay, I'm sitting down to do my thing here. And as you say, the frequency just knows like, oh, you're in tune right now. You're ready to receive this. Here it comes. And the fire
right?
hose is on.
Yeah. And like I would say that the more you do it, the more you get. You know what I mean? Like I can't tell you how many times like the name for a training or one of my unique mechanisms or whatever just like came in the middle of writing an email about something that was not it,
Yeah.
right? But the idea hits and you're like, oh my God, that's an awesome idea. And then I'm asking, where does this idea fit in my world? Right.
Yeah.
But it has to come from your experience. And that's why I say like AI cannot do this because AI is not living your life. It's great at writing words, but like AI can't write an email for me about how I was feeling at jujitsu the other day, feeling imposter syndrome going up against this dude. You know what I mean? It's just it was not there. It did not collect that stimulus,
Yeah.
and I have to communicate to it what I am feeling. If I choose that I want to write about that thing, there's no way it is going to be able to even put that in a brainstorming list without the stimulus coming from me because it does not have the context of
Yeah.
how I'm living in my life. And if people realize that lived experience and how it makes you unique is what people are actually choosing when they're picking an educator or a coach. Like you just don't realize what a superpower it is to be able to share from that experience, right?
Beautiful. Beautiful. What are you most excited about that's coming up for you right now with your work that people should know about?
Yeah, man. I would say it is. We are going 100%. So I would say we, myself, and the first lady, my wife. We run our company, two-person business. No one else. There's a couple of freelancers, but we're building our own show here, and it's been a amazing year and a bit, and we're going into 2025 here at the time this is being recorded, and we're going all in on the creative motherfuckery stuff. So we've got the chamber, which is a program where I work with people. We got 43 spaces. There's about 17 left, and we are full steam on getting 43 creative mofos in there. And that's what's got me fired up. So the next right now, we're doing a Black Friday promotion. It doesn't matter if this goes out before that or not, but we are like giving all the strategies away at a crazy price to get more people who want to resonate with the ideas in. And I'm just excited about getting more folks who see the value in this combination of art and business and leading them through 2025 because I find the more you have the people that are aligned with that artistic vision for what you're creating around you, the stronger everything gets. Like the feedback loop just starts creating this positive effect. And I'm really pumped to see how that shows up and plays out in 2025.
I'm excited to do another recap in a year or less than a year, 9 months from now, and see where things are at with you because you're on fire, brother. It's great. It's beautiful to see. Your work's important for people that are trying to find their voice and get their voice out into the world and figure out how to share their gifts and make good money doing it. And so you're doing great work. It's always a pleasure to connect. I hope we get to hang out in person one of these days.
Yeah, man. I was just talking to someone that I think 2025 will be the year of the events. I think
Yeah,
folks are finally starting to realize they need to be getting together. But
yeah.
in another interesting update, what I'm really excited about, I got to show you this. So this is a photo that was just taken because this is what I'm sending off to Immigration Canada for my Canadian citizenship, which I
Oh,
qualified for this year.
you
So
hoser, you. Way to go, eh?
yeah,
You're
I know,
finally
I
one of
know.
us. Oh, don't you know? Isn't that the greatest feeling ever?
So I've been here long enough. Citizenship, that's the other big thing for me. Finally get my Canadian citizenship in 2025. So hopefully I'll be flying back to Ireland next Christmas on my Canadian passport. That's
Oh,
my
geez,
other
I
big goal
hope
for
you get a
2025.
2 for a beer to celebrate the occasion and strap on your skates and go play some shinny on the ice rink.
We'll stay away from the darts.
Yeah, and don't go riding no mooses at night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
amazing.
that's
That's
funny.
great. That's very exciting. I agree about events because we've been We just launched Chi Ball. I'm
D-ball,
applying for
do
all
tell me.
these festivals and conferences to bring this game to the world as well. So I agree. It's time to get out in the world and have some fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
So
sure.
amazing.
Amazing.
Well, thanks for the conversation. Super fun.
As
I'm
always,
sure
always a
other
blast,
people will
Bradley.
enjoy this as well. And if not, we had a good time.
We, that's all that matters, right?
Amazing.
Very, very frequency of you,
That's
Bradley.
right.
Very frequency of you indeed.
Beautiful. Well, enjoy the rest of your year. This is going to go out in the next week or so. So, everybody, thanks so much. Get on Ross's email list. You will be thankful you did.
Amazing.
Okay?
Ciao for now, dude.
Take care.